tweet out. Tweet it out. Tweet it out. Tweet it out. Tweet it out. Talk shows and podcasts. Do. That's interesting. So I'm going to need to figure out how to I'm going to want to put either a blind or something to cover this window. It's not a real balcony. It's like you open the door and there's like a prevent you from jumping. Guardrail. That's what it's called. It's a guardrail outside the window. So also need to figure out a resolution for the background noise because I'm not sure if cutting this up will reduce the or do anything to help with the noise suppression, but we'll see. And also try to get rid of the it's a really loud room, but try to get rid of some of the extraneous noises that are in the background of anytime I do a live stream or I do a podcast. Well, next steps. So now I have a little bit more freedom to do more live streams, so long as I can figure out a way to make the audio sound better for podcasts if I'm doing my own show, and also for the Esports Business Network podcast, because I'm not happy with the way that it's sounding now. But I'm obviously I'm using the pod mic right now, but I might switch back to the Samson. The Samson has a super cardioid polar pattern that kind of helps in deletion of those extraneous noises. And yeah, so I decided to use the C920 and set up some LED panels and try that out because using the JVC and the Canon, it's a little bit more complicated and difficult for me to set up comparatively to plugging a webcam into the plugging in a webcam into the USB. Um, so I went to dinner with my mom and dad. I should say, I went to dinner at my mom and dad's. Um, we had some barbecue and German barbecue bratwurst, and yeah, and today my day was pretty much. I got a new desk, ordered off Amazon. I put it together. I went and got a haircut, and and what else did I do today? I went and picked up some more things that were in a storage unit, um, and I put them into the house, such as plates and pots and plates, and so now I think completely moved in. Um, as far as the small stuff, no, it's just still some big stuff that needs to happen. If you can look in the background, I do have the blurred background on, but if you look in the background, you can see it got boxes and stuff from from moving in, and so I need to uh, still need to get a couch, um, my podcast table or my dining table, whatever, what have you. I still need to get that from my grandmother's house, and I need to buy 4 chairs for that table. Um, yeah, so so now I have I have 4 microphones, so I could do a 4 person podcast at some point in time. And now I do have a 4 part. Well, actually, before I had a 6 channel mixer, so I could do it already, but it's a little bit more convenient now with the 4 channel pod track to record podcasts and stuff like that, especially mobile. Um, and so with everything, just trying to stay up to date with everything going on in esports. Trying to stay up to date with everything going on in content creation, as far as new narratives, new cameras, and so on and so forth. I think you know. Um I'm still trying to be a magnet for um, creative minds that need like a second help, a second hand, or something like that. Um, on sort of day by day projects in a way. I'm looking for clients and stuff like that. It's not even really clients, to be honest. Like I was thinking about that today. It's like even someone with a good idea and even half the money to do it, you know, um, will be interesting to work with, and trying to establish and build something. Although I'm already building my own things, uh, and I'm trying to grow my network here in Austin, of course. I think Austin Live and Local, it represents what I do, and I don't necessarily know if it represents. Um, I don't know if it. I don't know if it's the name or what it is, but I don't know if it necessarily um, translates or uh, or makes sense for other people. You know, growing up, I don't think I really understood what Austin was Austin, Texas, that is, um, or is. And now I understood to a degree that there was like music and a nightlife and stuff like that happening in Austin. And I understood South by Southwest, uh, and a few different nightclubs and stuff like that that people would talk about. But I didn't really understand, I guess, the live music capital of the world um, aspect. And now I think I understand it a little bit more. Having been a bartender, having been a bar back, having been a parking attendant, a car washer, a valet, um, having done a lot of the grunt work that goes into making the city what it is. Austin, Texas, the 512, the ATX. Um, I've experienced a lot of things, being a promoter, being a showrunner, um, and those experiences, and having, you know, spoken with transplants, spoken with born and bred, and all different types of folks that have chosen for Austin, Texas to be um, their stomping grounds, their home of record, their permanent home of address, their where they are supposed to be. Um, so I say, don't think I really understood um, the breadth of 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 culture and depth of what Austin is. And so I think I'm getting a better idea of it now. I wanted to appeal when I built Austin Live and Local to to those people like myself that um, that have a love and a admiration for live music, and those artists that are developing like the true sound of Austin, um, in the sense of like the fact that they grew up here, they were born here, that they spent most of their life here in Austin, and so I'm still trying to build with Austin Live and Local. I just feel that, you know, it may not be the magnet for. Um, it doesn't seem to be uh, being the largest magnet for me to build, at least as far as my local network now. Um, Now the media agency portion and working with, building Cyber City Media and working with contractors and placing bids on contracts for larger projects in the media space, from convention. Well, I mean, not right now. Conventions suck, but from placing bids on outdoor activities, trying to stay clear of the wedding industry because it's super saturated. There's opportunity for sure, but it's uh, it's either you work for a larger company and you invest what you basically invest what you put into it, and leave with basically nothing. Um, but it is something, if you need quick cash, beer money, do a wedding. Do a wedding. Um, Obviously, if you're a creative or someone who who choose doesn't desire to like be involved with weddings or like religious activities like weddings and things like that, um, which I have nothing against that. It just weddings have always seemed kind of complicated to me. What's up, mom? What's up, mom? Um, but yeah, placing bids on contracts for creative stuff with Cyber City Media and working on building more services in for that company as far as partnering with other media agencies to deliver clients unique things or more social media exposure, a larger audience, um, and working to improve my own skills as far as communication goes, as being a leader, being someone who can be a resource as a teacher, or at least provide some form of the stuff. Well, if you're on YouTube, you can hit the share button, and I don't think you have Twitter, so you could share it to Facebook. I prefer that you don't share it to Facebook, but hey, do what you do. Um, um, just because I'm already live on Facebook, so it kind of pulls away from the audience of people on Facebook that would see me on Facebook. But um, yeah, see, so sort of these are sort of the some of the complications um, that I that I that I think about are with social media in particular is that you want the maximum amount of exposure that you possibly can get when being a broadcaster or publishing content on social media, especially with all the platforms that there are now: TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all these platforms, Twitter, of course, um, Reddit. You want the maximum exposure, but at the same time, they're sort of uh, competing for attention. So the platforms, like if you're on YouTube, you're creating a video, and someone shares that to Facebook, then it kind of pulls away from the audience that you're building on Facebook because you kind of want to capture, you want to retain, I should say, not capture. You want to retain the audience and viewers that you have on Facebook on the Facebook platform. Um, so there are some complications in multi broadcasting and using platforms. Where was I going with this? Well, anyway, so with the way that the platforms are working right now with Fiverr, Upwork, Craigslist, Facebook groups, and stuff like that, and sourcing opportunities in the Austin area to find clients, uh, what what I'm doing is a lot of cold calling. That's not cold calling particularly, because they're sort of warm leads. What's up, Kathy? Huh. Sort of warm leads in the sense that the people who post the opportunities on the messaging boards for like Facebook groups, Reddit, Fiverr, Upwork, any of these platforms that are commerce based, they're kind of they're already looking for someone to do the work. Um, so you're contacting them, but a lot of the times what happens is either the job or the gig or the opportunity, the expectations are are very high, and the pay for the opportunities don't match or exceed those expectations. So a lot of the times I can't, with the resources that I have, outbid those larger commercial organizations and media agencies, because um, they're able to throw people that work for their agency at the contract at pennies on the dollar, compared to, you know, being someone who's doesn't have like a huge network here in Austin of content creators and media professionals. I I'm still just really building those relationships. For instance, there's a gig that's upcoming that I need a drone operator for, but I need a drone operator that's sort of easy to work with, has, you know, good social skills, is someone that has the licenses, the um, FAA, Federal Administration of Aviation licenses to fly the drone commercial use. Um, and I've, you know, ran into a lot of people, yada yada. They generally do weddings. They, you know, they bought a drone, but it's not the big drone, and it's just like, well, um, not exactly the not exactly what I would say the best deal is, but and also, you know, you kind of want to go when you're working with contractors, you don't really want to bring someone onto your client, especially if this is like an established client or like a regular client. You don't want to bring this person into a production that you a relationship that you already have established, and have them sort of tarnish your reputation. Or if they're really good, you don't want them to, like, you know, steal your client away from you. Which is whatever. You can always work harder and try to do better, and, you know, um, find more clients. You can always attempt to do that. I'm not going to say it's like a guarantee. There's no guarantees in life, right? But you can, like, always, you know, work to replace the client if it does get stolen from you. Um, and if so if a situation where you're bidding for something like that, you generally want to have like a plethora or like a long Rolodex or contact list of contractors that do multiple different um, roles on a production set, especially if the client wants to work with a small crew, because that's why generally that clients work with me, because you know, I'm not big box retail media agency that um, that has that level of contractor contact lists and things like that that I want to be. But you got to kind of climb the ladder to a degree, uh, unless you start out on third base. Of course, if you start out on third base, you start out on third base. You know, if you're a popular kid in high school or college, you know, had a lot of friends, and all those friends are, I mean, a significant amount of those friends do media and content development, production work. Then, I mean, yeah, you look at what you have. You have, um, you have a good network to work with. Um, that's something very valuable. So, for those listening to this podcast and the live stream, and and you have that network, don't let it go to waste. Um, you know, I know, like, and I know this is reality, even with the small network of friends that I have and a small network of colleagues and whatnot that I have. Um, you know, you can burn a bridge unintentionally by, you know, having these expectations of your friends that you that they can't live up to. They can't live up to that expectation, right? Um, because they're cool people to hang out with, but they don't necessarily have the professional skills to really knock it out of the park when the lights are on. When it's game time. They're fun. They're good. They're good at dabbling. They're good at, and I feel this way about myself. It's like a hypercritical thing that I'm talking about right now. Is like they're good at practice, but when it comes to the championships and when it comes to the playoffs, it comes to, and I'm using sports analogies. Uh, when it comes to game time, they just don't show up. They can't play. When lights are on, they just they fold up. They're just not. Um, they don't have the talent. Maybe that's it. Um, but largely, I think it's due to a lack of experience. I definitely think it's that because experience is something that I'm. That's like everything that I'm working for is the next gig to, and not experience in an insular way in the sense of like working with the same people all the time. I want to work with a variety of different personalities because it'll show where the weaknesses are in the culture and the and how things can be improved in my game and how I perform because I there's a reason why new basketball leagues, new football leagues, new baseball leagues, new things get developed is because the the professional organizations become stagnant. And I'm starting to roll into the esports talk here shortly. Is that when when it comes down to 32 teams, 12 teams, whatever that are like the top of the top brand wise, and like it becomes like the Harlem Globetrotters. Everything's staged. It's all stagnant. Nothing's unique. Everyone plays the same, and it's boring. It's just not entertaining. There's nothing spontaneous that's going to happen. There's nothing. Rarely, I mean, sometimes, there's some miracles that happen that are unique and whatnot that happen on the playing field, but um, generally, it's clinic. They show up and they play, and at the end of the day, they you see the same runs, the same baskets, the same hits, the same everything. It just looks the same. It's like reruns, constant reruns, to relate it to like terrestrial television and programmatic. That watching these things, like some people get like and I mean I do from certain things as well. So, but some people have a uh, higher need for nostalgia. Like they really need to consume a high frequency or high rate of nostalgia. And for me, it's like I'm sort of, I guess, a futurist in the sense because I want to see different. I want to see things that are different. I want to see how maybe one thing could be done, but maybe how could it get improved in a totally different way, like a totally unique, different way. Um, and I think that this is happening in esports, and we'll segue from Cyber City Media into Esports Business Network. I think this is happening um, in the sense of that when new games are made and new esports leagues are built, new players do develop, and they don't have the same personalities. They don't have the same tendencies and things that behaviors that the other leagues and other participants have. Although like there's a lot of crossover because like people who play Call of Duty also play League of Legends and they also play Rocket League and play other variety games. So on their in their spare time or like when they're not competing, some are like super sweaty and like they only play one game. But um, I really believe that esports will transcend in the way that it teams and communities will rise, and I don't think it'll stay um, stagnant and stuck in the same ways that traditional sports has become, where that well, number one, the city-based franchising that comes with um, the NFL and the NBA and stuff like that doesn't necessarily need to be implemented into the professional esports scene. Case in point, Overwatch League and Call of Duty League to a certain degree, because it is it really failed to take off. And I mean, albeit the pandemic and coronavirus and stuff like that that has prevented the expansions of new teams. So that's the thing. Is like there's no reason to limit the amount of teams that are participating into professional leagues. Um, even if the players are significantly less skilled, let's say, but it almost seems like every major city should have a professional esports team, even in the same state, the same municipality, in the same country. Um, there should be multiple teams for cities that represent their city, but it still seems like to follow a traditional sports model. Sometimes it feels like the music industry. It sometimes does, but I think there are more people who, and I was talking to myself a little bit about this and kind of meditating on this, about the fact that there are just so many washed up, uh, and I even consider myself washed up, like a washed up content creator, a washed uh, cinema cinematographer, washed, like someone who never really made it, who never made it happen. Um, in the sense of like a big production, like a Hollywood production. I never did that. I never even did an independent film. Like, I mean, whatever you want to call school, student films or whatever you want to call those independent films, sure. Um, I never really blew it out of the park. I never been a director. Never, never really, um, never won any film festivals. Never won any championships when it comes to traditional sports or being an artist or anything really. I mean, I got accolades over there, accolades, diplomas, and things like that. But um, they really don't. I mean, I have nothing to show for it, really, other than like most of the stuff that I learned, as far as production goes, was after the fact. I mean, creatively, I kind of get, I have my mind is compartmentalized and structured in a way that that helps me critically think, um, maybe better than others, or makes my mind more, um, makes me think out of the box, because that's the intention. The Well, to a degree. I mean, it really depends what you go to school for. If you go into school for like a pretty practical thing, like being a doctor or being a nurse, or someone that's sort of a general practitioner of sorts. Um, you read the books, you study stuff, you do, and you go you go to your office and you execute on those things you learned. In creative fields like the sciences and the arts, um, it, largely what you go to school for is to be taught how to how to think differently. There's a lot of noises that I'm not familiar with. A lot of noises in this new place that I'm not familiar with that I'm gonna have to adjust the microphones and stuff like that so that so it's not too crazy. What's up, Knives? I just got off done with a rant about why you should go to school, um, and the purposes of going to school, and why how that is implemented into being creative. Uh, talked about talked about Austin and building a network in Austin. I'm trying to build professional relationships in the space so that you can so that I'm able to build and develop the media agency with Cyber City Media, getting new contracts, bidding on stuff, and um, talked about esports and professional esports, pretty specific. But I could also talk a little bit about like esports in the sense of uh, the the wagering and participation in the sense of playing a game for money, um, being a champion in that, and not having to necessarily go down the professional route. But the professional route is obviously the salary route. It is the route that there's some guaranteed pay. However, at this point in the industry, as far as gaming and esports goes, um, pay is very performance based, meaning that most people in the industry get paid on the back end after they've produced the content or won the tournament or whatever. And largely content creators as well are, especially on Twitch and stuff like that, are paid based on performance. I mean, it's people donating to you, it's people paying you in subscriptions. Speaking of which, Knives, I don't even know what TikTok is. I know you've been doing lives. I don't know if you've connected. I don't know if you've connected like your PayPal or whatever to TikTok. I don't even know how it works. But to get donations or I've never really seen a TikTok live, so I don't know how it works. I've heard like I remember on Periscope, which is sort of similar to a TikTok live. There was these hearts, and you could like pay for hearts, and those hearts were like distributed to super hearts, I should say, or like it's like some microtransaction that pays the content creator for uh for the admiration or whatever they're giving them. Yeah, that's something simple, so super interesting because just on the esports podcast, esports business network podcast, I had Alexander Zavaloka on the podcast. I think that's probably how you pronounce it. I uh, may have screwed that up, but I hope that I pronounced that right. In his development and what he's developing, and there are a few other different companies that are developing this, is that it's it's an API essentially that connects to your broadcasting software, and there's an AI functionality to it to analyze what's going on the screen and add product placement and add sponsorship and advertising to your stream in real time, based on what advertisers are looking to reach. So I mean, like for content creators, that's amazing because Doesn't that means that means that you don't necessarily need to hire an agent to source those partnerships and those sponsorships for you. And then it also kind of means that you don't need to hire a manager, because you can basically, from the client side, manage the dashboard yourself. Now, when you become a pretty large streamer or a large content creator or large person who creates like compelling gaming content or whatever content you create, uh, you might want to have staff. You might want to have people on payroll to manage your schedule so that you stay consistent with creating content, so that you stay consistent with, you know, with deliverables when it comes to those sponsors that you work with. And then also, you want to have that agent that's out there brokering new sponsorships for you. Whether it be like a new CBG company, whether it be a new consumer packaged goods company, or it might be, hot topic right now, NFTs. Like you might be partnering with a marketplace for NFTs, so that people can purchase um, their digital assets, whether it be the non fungible tokens in the form of artwork, or in the form of blockchain currencies, or even like traditional um, collectibles like playing cards, apparel, stuff like that. Um, I haven't really dove into that. I just dove into that topic pretty interesting. I don't. Try not to think about the NFT thing. I feel like it's like super sus. I feel like people are just, it's hype. There's so much hype to it, and I don't know if it's a lot of hype because of like, for no apparent reason. Like I mean, geez, I'm seeing it all over the place. I'm seeing it in normie culture. It's like normie culture or normal person culture. It's like it's like attached to YouTube, and see it on you see it on on traditional news, and it's like, it seems very counterculture. It seems very like, but maybe that's what's happening. It's like the technocrats are overtaking. Like, I don't know. It seems like very futurist. It seems like something that the general population wouldn't want to adopt. Like, or even know, even put the effort into to like to acquire these things. I mean, it's not a one click. It's not Amazon level of one click gratification. There's this instant gratification aspect of NFTs is not there. So I'm just so curious as to why there's so much buzz around it when it, it, the average person can't. It's not even accessible to the average person. Accessibility with NFTs is crazy. OpenSea does not open the sea, like, and some of these other platforms. OpenSea is the most uh, recognizable one for me because it's the largest marketplace. But um, Mintable is another one that I'm thinking of, um, and and these NFT platforms. And I'm now caught up in the hype right now. I'm talking about it. The complications of having to golly, they're so expensive too. Like, you have to have the you have to have the you have to have the cryptocurrency, then you have to have a special wallet, a special way to transact. Then you need like multiple cryptocurrencies at some point in time. Sometimes, especially with like the NBA Top Shot thing, you got to have this whole other thing to be able to transact. And like, sure, you can some websites you're able to like just use your Visa card or Mastercard or whatever. I don't even know how it works overseas with sort of foreign exchange rates and stuff like that. But it's just bizarre, bonkers how this all works out. But it doesn't. It does play. Which I should probably take notes on these ideas sometimes that I have. Gotta take a note on this. I can't wait to have my screens back. Um, those what the thoughts that I'm having as far as like payables with NFTs is like how many how many NFT marketplaces in the world can there be? I mean, is it the same? Is it the same as like how many mom and pop restaurants there are in the world, or is there the same amount of boutiques? Like, are there going to be NFT like very? I mean, there already are boutiques. Like, if someone is an artist and they develop an NFT, like they have their own website, which they could definitely create a marketplace where people could buy directly from them instead of going through an open sea or some other larger marketplace where it's like, you know, there's some sort of transactional fee that has to be to happen between the marketplace, the producer, and the consumer. So I mean, this is so my curiosity is how do these larger open markets like OpenSea, how do the payables work for the creatives? How payables for NFTs work for creatives on um, on NFT market or on collective marketplaces. And then my second thing that I'm thinking about is like, in the future when automated um, automated advertising, automated video advertising, automated broadcast video advertising payables. That's my kind of, and I bring these up because um, right now I'm working with Tipalti about payables in gaming and esports. Um, and so we're developing a one pager. We're developing a an, call a workbook or no workbook necessarily, but like an a pamphlet of sorts about sort of the driving factors that are happening in monetization in esports and gaming. Um, and so I'm developing ideas as far as we go in how are we packaging how are we packaging necessarily the content and then serving that to advertisers or to the NFT marketplaces, and then when multiple transactions come in and multiple content creators are established on the platform, how can Tipalti help distribute payments to the content creators on the that are developing these pieces of art and these creatives. They always have a plethora of clients that they already work with, well-established clients. But we're looking at sort of the cutting edge and somewhat the bleeding edge of what are people developing in the VR, AR, mixed reality worlds as far as monetization goes. Because recently I was thinking about virtual reality cinema, and And in the virtual reality cinema space, um, when people are, I just recently watched a religious film, The Chosen, at least an episode of it, um, which is like documenting in sort of a unique, creative way the story of Jesus. And what's interesting is it almost has a sense of, well, I wish I was there. It almost is a sense of, this scene looks so lifelike. I'd like to see what's behind the camera. What did they have? Was the camera, inputted into the environment, and if it was embedded into the environment, and the actors are acting around this camera, what's going on? What's the storyline happening behind the camera, behind the vantage point or the viewpoint of this um, of this one perspective? Now, what'd be interesting is if there are particular scenes and stuff like that. Right now, obviously, this is sort of like um, simulation theory, but in a sense is my experience right now, the experience that I'm having in this moment, which is sort of breaking the third wall. Like, this is a multi-layered of um, multi-layered thought process right now. Is this experience the precipice of the experience of a virtual reality cinema engagement? Um, and but I feel in this experience, I mean, when I'm more a participant in this in the situation, like if you go out to a bar or something like that, and you're not you're not communicating, you're just observing, right? If you're an observer, right? Um, are people, you know, is there another simulation that is participating with you in that case, in a sense of seeing through your eyes, um, and visualizing? So are we like biological um, cameras for, you know other dimensional beings and things like that? Now that's diving down deep rabbit hole, because that feels like sort of a Westworld aspect, or even like, sort of uh, a layer between um, the concept of VR cinema, because you'd have a 360 camera embedded into a scene, and the actors act around it. But there would still need to be um, a two-dimensional, um, like a two-dimensional nature to it, and this for those consumers that still want to just observe the the film in traditional reality, uh, from the perspective of a screen, a two-dimensional screen, the silver screen, and and uh, the consumer, the viewer of that content. Um, the other, so what that develops into is, as someone who's has a desire for this VR cinema, is what sort of activations can you create? Because I don't necessarily want to be a participant in the um, in the video, um, and I don't want there's a weird, I don't know, I think most people who have consumed VR understand there's like a weird uh there's something weird about it where it's not like it's not it's not it's more cylindrical than it is square. I guess that's the best way to put it, is that it's not like you're looking at multiple screens. So it's not like you see you see a two-dimensional screen in front of you, and then you look around. It's very immersive, and I'm not talking about immersive virtual cinema. I'm talking about sort of a non-immersive virtual cinema where there isn't a it's still seamless in the sense of like you see a very square picture here, but it's not it's like it's still square in the sense of like the way that you observe. It's still rectangular in the same sense that you observe your desktop screen, or you observe your television screen. And when you look to your left, you see another screen. And I know you can experience this. You can experience this in traditional reality. I mean, in present reality, just by having multiple screens around you. But it does seem, it just seem like more. Um, it just seemed like there's a degree of friction removed when you put on virtual reality goggles, and you have much more control over the assets versus like obviously if you want to set up an immersive experience in the present reality. um, there's just a lot of moving pieces. So it's here's the here's what's interesting about the production of this non-immersive virtual cinema is virtual reality cinema, is that it is the it is the it is the it embodies the difficulty of the consumer as well, because as a consumer, if you wanted four different stories being told within one scene with multiple cameras um, depicting that, and you wanted to do that outside of the virtual reality space, you would need to have an inordinate amount of resources. An inordinate amount of resources to consume that at its highest fidelity. Um, and still experience that piece of content at its fullest. You'd need like 4 or 5 different short pitch projectors, or if you didn't go that way, like 4 or 5 70-inch or more, um, 70-inch or more 4K. 4K is fine. 4K TVs, you don't have to go 8K, 16K. You don't have to do that. That's just another level stuff. But or of course, the way that people have been building these sort of non-immersive, immersive environments, of course, with LED panels and 4K LED panels and things like that. So if you could build a room out where if you put yourself in the room. But here's the thing, about cinema is that it's very direct. It's very tension based. So you need some way to you need some form of manipulation when it comes to audio. As far as when you're looking at one screen, you are hearing the best audio possible from that screen. When you look to the left and look to the right, there should be you should it almost should be like you're switching channels, like that movie that you were watching there has muted. Now you're looking at the one on the right, and you're seeing a totally different mute at the highest fidelity, best audio that you possibly could. And so because you could because no, what will happen was like eventually the audio will get muddled, and you pretty much can't hear anything. You wouldn't be able to hear anything in that case. So there's a lot of complications that comes to this, especially in the VR world, because when you watch something like VR chatting on Twitch, or you watch like any sort of virtual reality world where people are communicating with each other, there's so much people talking over each other. I mean, even in the real world, if you go to like um, a music festival, a large conference, the amount of data that your brain is interpreting from all the conversations that are bleeding in. Some people go to these things and they lose their hearing. They lose their hearing for days because they're so inundated with conversations and document and hearing people talk about subjects and things like that. But this seems like something that it seems like the future. It does have like a very futuristic aspect to it. It feels like it's coming. It's in the now, but it's also not there yet when it comes to like non-immersive or virtual reality cinema. Just it's not there. Even a non-immersive virtual reality like documentary things or like um, non-fiction content like sports and and contemporary art and things like dance, dance. Of course, like painting and artwork. But there are a lot of things that I'm looking to accomplish. I've mentioned a few toward the end of this thing. I kind of dabbled and manipulated and played with the clay to a sense, with some of the things that I like from a macro perspective, and I got into the micro toward the end, um, with building yourself as an artist, building yourself as a content creator, building building a network, building a local network, so that you're working with people that you can you're working and you're friends and you're having a good you're experiencing life to its fullest, and that's sort of building that local network. And then number three, was building sort of purpose for others, and it both as like both as a giver and a receiver, right? And being a leader and being a follower and sort of establishing those relationships in that sense through a different catalyst, because you have your sort of your creative catalyst that's that's purpose driven and has um, a theme or a purpose. It's purposeless. Just say that. And so mine would be myself. Of course, I had to settle my own needs with Trent Knox Productions, and of course, Austin Live and Local. Of course, is that niche? Well, it's more of like I don't really know. I wouldn't call it philanthropic, but I mean, it definitely has a sense of like a giving nature, in the sense that this is where I grew up, and I want to represent Austin to in the ATX and 502 to its fullest of what I experienced, of course, and and I've lived around the world now, but um, I lived in the United States, I should say. I haven't lived overseas. Eventually, I will live overseas, part time, from time to time, whatever it may be. I aspire to get to the point in which I have the privilege to experience international cultures and live overseas. But at this time, I don't have that means. I don't have those resources to accomplish those goals right now. Hopefully, I'll get them in the future. Um, what else? So yeah, building a larger entity in the Cyber City Media, the agency, and providing for others back with like it's more labor intensive. Obviously, like Austin Live and Local is sort of like a creative and sort of fun, sort of just like there's just a different spirit to it. Now, Cyber City Media is uh, very surgical, very strategic, very intention based, with having particular goals that they're accomplishing in social media production, podcast production, video production, live streaming, sort of different, very specific objectives. And then Esports Business Network is obviously very niche, has very specific um, target audience, and and it's something that I enjoy um, as an artist, as a content creator, pursuing it and being an entrepreneur as well. Uh, and so those are sort of my projects that I'm working on right now. I want to develop some more projects. Obviously, I would like to. Well, not obviously, but I've mentioned before that I want to dive deeper into fashion and music and whatnot. And obviously, I still have community in the sense of Austin Live and Local, but sort of separate, more international, more international venture into music and fashion. Um, and I don't know if those are two different things or one of the same, but like a different brand of a sense. That's what sort of what I am. And an entrepreneur does this is like creates businesses, creates brands, creates IP, do LLCs, sort of business in that nature. And so I guess that's pretty much it. And of course, my day to day life of just being a human, accomplishing goals like buying a house, owning a quality car, a nice car. Those are kind of two different things. You want a quality car for commuting to and from somewhere, and you want a nice car that you can take your lady out or your significant other onto the town and do some romantic things, buy flowers, so there's other things that come up to um, in experiencing life and living life to the fullest and having a great lifestyle. Um, yeah, so that's it. This has been another Trent Knox show. Um, these are sort of the next steps, what I'm looking to accomplish, and I appreciate my mom and my mom's friend Kathy and Knives for dropping in, saying hello and whatnot. And um, hopefully there will be another time in which I feel compelled to do something like this. I feel like I'm getting my engine started. I feel like I'm just throwing coal into the locomotive and getting the train rolling, getting the coal rolling, getting down the tracks, going. Because I've been away from live streaming. I've been away from content creation for a while. I've been in a place. I wouldn't call it a dark place. I've just been in sort of an empty place, spiritually and mentally in some ways. This is we could go on for another hour and a half just talking about this, but feeling like the purpose is like I have ideas and you know I'm I'm working on them, but uh, at times I feel that I'm just not getting everything I want done, and that happens to everyone. Like you work on something, and then like you have to reduce the amount of um, output that you have on one particular project to increase the output on another. And I want to keep consistent with the Esports Business Network podcast, and I don't want to I don't want to like I've been able to stay consistent with it since I went consistent with it, because obviously it started off kind of like real rough. It was like one podcast and another podcast like 6 months apart or something like that, a long time apart. And then I started working with other people to start to stay consistent with it. And now I'm back onto my own as far as management of it. and I've definitely uh, been very productive with it at times, and then I've had to reduce it. There's so much manipulation and playing to try and get it right to the point at which I'm like, okay, this works, and it works consistently enough that I could teach someone else how to manage it. Because right now, it's very hard to manage. It's like I can't find certain I can't find certain plugins to increase the autonomy of producing it and reduce the significant amount of labor that it takes to be creative. Um, you want to have. I personally would like to outsource a lot of the tedious labor that goes into it, but if you want anything done perfect, then you got to do it yourself. That just seems how it is. But I get tired, I get overworked, and I often I'm not able to accomplish it all. Um, that being said, stay consistent with Esports Business Network. Do more engagements and activations with Austin Live and Local. Keep working at Cyber City Media and bidding on contracts. But most of all, with the Trent Knox Show, streaming some more, creating the podcast more, having guests on the Trent Knox Show. I want to do that. I do want to return to doing that. And just because the Trent Knox Show, I'm just like sort of like a Jimmy Kimmel sort of thing, but more down to earth for sure. Like talking to people who are creatives, who are people who are doing things in life that are unique and and fun and really like asking them questions for my own benefit for to a degree of like improving my craft, improving my skill, getting better, producing at a higher quality, um, and just delivering. That's also really what I want to accomplish is just delivering because it's really hard to um, to just do it on your own. It's really hard, but you need to have value. You have to have some value that you can um, provide other participants in your life. Because when you're just like taking the when you're taking the experiences that you have in life, they're not the perspective you have is very um, it is your own unique experience, right? It is your own perspective, and you need those people that have diverse experiences in life to tell you like, oh, it's also if you look at it from this angle, it's a little different, and you need people who are also pursuing um, diversity of 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 thought, people who are trying to improve the way that they think, and you need to work with those people because it will make you a better person. So that's what the Trent Knox Show will be driving to accomplish. Is number one, speaking with other local entrepreneurs and international and national and different people, and talking about life and our goals and our dreams and aspirations, ups and downs, all of those things. So once again, thank you for watching. If you watch the live stream or watch the video, and then for the audience that's on podcasts, I always appreciate the listen. Thank you. Have a great night.